Okay, Wildcat, today we're going to journal page 52, solve cube and cube root equations. Solving cubic equation steps. Step 1, factor sum and difference of cubes by graphing. Step 2, solve linear and or the quadratic. If the equation is not factorable, then graph the equation with the solutions. Solving cube root equation steps. Step 1, isolate the cube root. Step 2, raise both sides of the equation to the power of 3. Step 3, simplify and solve. If you would, update your notes. Okay, now your notes are updated. Let's take a look at the examples. And go forward, see if we can adjust that a little bit and maybe brighten it just a hair. There we go. All right, solve each equation. Let me try focusing in one more time. All right, so here you see it as x cubed minus 8. So we're going to want to factor using in this case, the difference of squares. Wait a second. Now I got it. All right. Finally, I think we got the blurriness away. So the first thing we need to do is identify what A and B are. Well, you ask yourself, what cube gives you x cubed? The answer to that is x. And then what cube gives you 8? The answer to that is 2. We know that since it's the difference of cubes, we use this formula right here. So now that we know A and B, all we have to do is substitute A and B into this equation. So then that's x minus 2 times x squared is x squared plus x times 2 is 2x plus 2 squared is 4 equals 0. Okay. Now we can set x minus 2 equal to 0. So we solve that, x equals 2. Okay, so there's one of our solutions. Now we need to set x squared plus 2x plus 4 equal to 0. And we want to see if it's factorable. Okay. Now to see if it's factorable, we need to find all the combinations that multiply to give you 4 and combine to be 2. Okay. So we know that 1 times 4 is 4. We know that 2 times 2 is 4. And we know that 4 times 1 is 4. Now, combining, we look at 1 plus 4 is 5. That doesn't work. 2 plus 2 is 4. That doesn't work. And 4 plus 1 is 5. So we say that this is not factorable. All right, so now we're going to use the quadratic formula. And let's go ahead and add that to the top of our page. So if we need it again, so x equals negative b plus or minus, and we know it's going to be divided by, so let's go ahead and add our fraction. The square root of b squared minus 4 times 8c divided by 2a. Okay. Now, we're going to figure out what a, b, and c are. So a is 1, b is 2, c is 4. And now we substitute those numbers into this formula. So x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 4 divided by 2 times 1. Okay, so now let's simplify that. So that's x equals -2 plus or minus, well, 2 squared is 4, minus 16 is the square root of -12 divided by 2. Okay, but we can simplify the square root of -12 by writing that as x equals -2 plus or minus the square root of -4 times 3 divided by 2. All right, it seems I've run out of space to add another step, so I'm going to have to write that off to the side. So let me show you what the square root of -4 times 3 reduces to be. Okay, so what we do with that is we take the square root separately. So that becomes the square root of -4 times the square root of 3. Now, the square root of 4 is 2, but since it's negative, this is 2i times the square root of 3. Okay, so with that said, this is x equals -2 plus or minus 2i times the square root of 3 divided by 2. But now we can divide everything by 2. So -2 divided by 2 is -1 plus or minus 2i divided by 2 is 1i square roots of 3. Okay, so go ahead and finish up example 1. Okay, now let's take a look at example 2. All right, so here we have 4 terms we're going to factor by grouping. So we can take out an x squared from both terms, which leaves x minus 1. And we can factor out a 2 from there, so that's plus 2, which leaves x minus 1. Okay, since these are the same, we can factor by grouping. So we have x squared plus 2 times x minus 1. And I almost forgot the equal 0 should be right there. Okay, so now we set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So x squared plus 2 equal to 0. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides to get x squared equals -2. Take the square root of both sides. Now, don't forget square root's plus or minus. So this is x equals plus or minus. Then we take the square root of a negative number, it's imaginary. So that's plus or minus I square roots of 2. Okay, now we set x minus 1 equal to 0. Well, that's easy. X equals 1. Okay? All right, now let's take a look at example 3. Now, there's 4 terms we're going to factor by grouping, so we're going to take out an x squared which leaves x plus 2. And the only thing we can take out of here is a negative 1. So that's negative 1, 5x plus 6. Now, these are not the same, so this is not factorable. Now, with a problem like this, the only option we really have to solve the solution is we know that the solutions are where it crosses the x-axis. Okay? So we're going to have to graph this. And there's no real graphing this kind of function using direction or other things, so we're just going to have to use a calculator. Okay? So let's do that. So we're going to go to On, New Document, Add Graph, and then that's x cubed, click to the right, plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. We don't put the equal to 0. Press enter. And what we're looking at is where it crosses the x-axis. So it crosses at negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. It crosses at negative 1. And it crosses at positive 2. So our answers are x equals negative 3, x equals negative 2, and x equals 2. The lighting and blurriness in this video is just incredible, but we're going to get through it, okay? All right, so now let's just make a brief sketch of the graph. So we know it goes through there, goes up, goes back down. We really don't care what crosses at the y-intercept, but it looks like it crosses at negative 1, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it crosses back up here. Okay. All right, so go and finish up example 3. All right, now let's take a look at example 4. Let's go drastic. That's too dark. That's probably... All right, that's just the best we're going to get, I guess. All right, example 4. So we're going to solve. So the first thing we do is divide both sides by 7. So then that's the cube root of 5x minus 7 equals 84 divided by 7 is 12. Okay, now we need to cube both sides. Okay, well the cube, uncubed roots, the cube root, so then that's 5x minus 7 equals 12 cubed is 1,728. We're going to add 7 to both sides, so you get 5x equals 1,735. Divide both sides by 5, and you get x equals 347. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and finish up example 4. All right, now let's take a look at example 5. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. So that's the cube root of x plus 180 equals 6. We need to cube both sides. So then that becomes x plus 180 equals 6 cubed is 216. subtract 180 from both sides, x equals 36. Okay, go and finish up example 5. All right, example 6. Now, there's really nothing we can do to either side, so we're just going to have to cube both sides. Okay, well, that uncubes the cube root, so you're left with 1x plus 6 equals, now, when you cube this, there's 3 of them, so that's 2 times x minus 1 to the 1/3 times 2x minus 1 to the 1/3 times 2x minus 1 to the 1/3. Okay, so we still just have 1x plus 6 equals 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. And then 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 is 3/3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so that's just x minus 1 to the 1 power. But really, we can ignore that 1 and we just distribute the 8. So that's 1x plus 6 equals 8x minus 8. All right. Now, we're going to want to subtract 1x from both sides and add 8 to both sides. Those cancel. You're left with 14 equals 7x. Those cancel. Divide 7 by both sides. X equals 2. Okay, go and finish up example 6. And then start working on your assignment and have a wonderful Wildcat day.